Hi, I'm Greg Snyder, along with Coach Willoughby, joining us for the pregame show. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you for having me again.
First of all, let's kind of look back at the last couple of games with Piqua and Lehman. I know your team has been accused a little bit, rightfully so or not rightfully so, of playing down to the competition's level or not being able to put people away. Yeah. But you sure put them away the last couple of games. What do you think was the difference? Is it just this time of year, or are we just getting to that point where we have that killer instinct?
I think it's the time of year. We want to be playing our best at this time of the year, and I think the kids are understanding the seriousness of it all here, and I think they're just getting ready to show what they can do from here on out. Absolutely.
And along those lines, a big part of that obviously is your starters, but let's talk a little bit about your bench. You know, you go to St. Mary's and Trey has a big game. Dom's really stepped up the last couple of games, and Lathan as well. Yeah. Could you just talk about those three in particular and what they've done and what they've added?
Well, Dom, he gives us that energy. If we feel we're not picking up defensively strong enough, or we're lacking that energy during the game, Dom supplies that for us. He also gives us energy on the offensive end. He creates a lot. He likes to get in the middle of the lane and get us some easy baskets there. So we like Dom just because of his energy defensively, gets us going a little bit. And Trey's our best shooter, and when he hits 2 or 3 threes a game, and that just opens everything up for us. And he's starting to get some rebounds and offensive rebounds and putting them back. So, you know, hopefully his game is expanding a little bit, because we're going to need him definitely next year. Be a big part of our team next year. But to talk about the rest of this year, the way the teams are going to play us, either zone-wise or the matchup with Andre, it's going to be key that we have somebody that just can stand there and hit a couple open shots for us, and Trey's the one. And then Lathan's, I'll tell you what, he's been dynamite the last, I'm going to say, 4 games. One of our weaknesses is rebounding defensively, and Lathan's just an athlete, man. He can go after and get everything, and what's been not surprising, but what he's shown a little bit more as an offensive threat here, especially when he gets the offensive rebounds, being able to jump over people and put their offensive rebounds back in.
Absolutely. And along those lines with Lathan, can you talk, I know early in the year you didn't play Lathan and Ratez together a lot. Right. What was kind of the decision that led you to playing them together a lot, which has been very, very good for you?
Yeah, we didn't feel comfortable with our offensive sets with both of them in. But Lathan's just been, practice-wise, he's been showing that what he can do, and then he's bringing that into the games, which is a hard thing for high school kids to do. A lot of kids can practice well, but once it gets into a game situation, they don't play as well. But Lathan's been able to take his practice work, what he gets done in practices, and brings him to the game. So we're getting that confidence, that trust in him a little bit more. And I just, for some reason, the way he's playing is, in the last, 2 weeks or so, has just been so much better than what he was in practice or at the beginning of the year. Now Ratez feels comfortable on the perimeter. We keep Lathan inside, so we're able to play those two now, because I feel Lathan has improved enough where we can play both of them, and Ratez can play the 4 instead of the 5.
Sure. And also along those lines of getting ready for, you know, big games here coming up and also the tournament coming up, I've also noticed that you guys have switched defenses just a little bit, shown a little bit of a half-court trap and things like that. Are those things and inbounds plays, do you save some of those things for later in the year, or is this something that you've worked on the entire year?
We work on them the entire year. We have them in probably 2nd week, 3rd week of practice, with the intent on using them later in the year or when we think we need them. We've been using our half court a little bit here recently, just because teams have prepared well enough for our run and jump a little bit. So we have a backup plan with we call it our 21 flat, which is our half court 1-2-2 press. Instead of picking up full court or a 3/4 court with it, we wait till they get over half court and try to trap and be able to, we don't have as much space to cover with our back guys. But we have a lot of things in. That doesn't necessarily, we use them all year long. We try to pick and choose what will work best. Like we have some out of bounds plays, as you mentioned, that we haven't run all year, that when we see fit, we'll run them.
Gotcha. And then just before we move on and looking forward to Butler and to the tournament game, one last thing, going down to Piqua, great atmosphere. Of course, they had the great story with the purple shirts and everything, but a hostile environment. How much do you think that kind of helps our kids, first of all, get their energy level up, but also moving forward to what could be some tough times in some key games here coming up, being able to battle through those?
Well, that was, number one, it was surprising that the crowd that we had and that Piqua had. Be honest, I didn't think there'd be too many people there from Piqua. I thought, you know, Sydney has supported our basketball all year long, so I thought we'd have a decent crowd, but I didn't think Piqua would have many. So when we got there, JV game, there weren't many people there, so we're saying we're gonna have to find our own energy. We're gonna have to, you know, get them going here. But when we came out for pregame and stuff, it turned into a tournament atmosphere. You know, for many years I played our Division IV sectionals there, and that was the atmosphere, and that's what it felt like. And I'm glad we had that experience to get us going, number one, for the Piqua game, because we needed that little pick-me-up, and just to get our guys being able to handle themselves in a situation like that. So that's good experience for us, and I think we came out and played pretty well, and I think the second half against Piqua, I don't know if it's because of some things they were saying to our team or just because of the crowd or whatever, I thought we had a really good second half down there.
Okay, Coach, let's talk about the tournament draw a little bit. Obviously, we'll just start off with the elephant in the room. You go down and you find out you're the 4 seed, probably when you get there, right, is when you find out.
Yep.
Did you take that as any type of slight or anything like that, or were you kind of expecting that? I guess, what were your emotions when you saw that?
Well, I anticipated anywhere number 1 seed through number 5, and I think actually we only got one team to vote us number 1. So, you know, but the way I take it is, you know, there's a lot of good teams. They all, the schedules that they play might be a little bit tougher than ours on some of them, but I like the spot we're in. I'm not complaining one bit. I appreciate the votes that we got, but you know, I think tournament-wise, you need to win some tournament games and get beyond the sectionals for teams then to rank you a little bit higher the next year or the next year. I think we're getting to that point. I think we're getting to that point, but we got to win some more tournament games and maybe get, you know, a little bit farther in the tournament to put us up above maybe a Springfield who has a few more losses than us, or a Centerville that has a few more losses than us. But I think the history of them and the schedules that they play, teams probably feel they're a little bit stronger than we are. But we just, you know, no matter where you are, you got to let your play speak for you, and that's where that's the point we have to get to.
Sure. And speaking of that, when you go in, I know it's hard with 20 teams or however many teams there were to have a real strategy going in, but were there any goals that you had in mind going in as far as, you know, looking forward 2 or 3 games, or were you just, I'm going to put us in the best position possible to win our first game and then to win our second game, or was there a little bit of strategy looking forward for you?
A little bit of strategy of where we felt we could get out of the section a little bit. Now we're playing the way we set ourselves. Centerville got the number 1 seed, and we didn't want to mess with them. We didn't want to go with them. They have a 6'10" kid that we probably wouldn't be able to handle. So that was point number 1. And we didn't want to go up with Butler, playing them the 3rd time. No matter what we do against Tuesday night, just didn't want to play them a 3rd time. And then, so that left us with the Springfield. We felt comfortable there. We played them really well. They were a very strong team last year, and we played them down to the wire. So we felt comfortable going into that spot. That's about the strategy I had with that.
Gotcha. And along those lines, other than seeing a 6'10" kid, your team has shown the ability to, you know, play with high-scoring teams and also play the slow-down game. Mm-hmm. How comforting is that to know that going into these games, you can match up with anybody's style and still win the ball game? Although you have a style you like, yeah, I'm sure, and that our players like, you can win any style of ball game. Yeah,
we take pride now. I think our practices, we coach that way. We work on certain rhythms and styles during practice time, and knowing what opponent is coming up in our schedule, we concentrate our practices towards that. So we don't get frustrated when a team's holding the ball for 30, 40 seconds. That's okay with us because we know we're sound defensively. We don't break down too often. We break down on the rebounding a little bit, but we're getting a little bit better with that. But we know we can keep our concentration on the defensive end for the entire possession. And then what I like about us is we come down. If it's there, we'll get it right away. If not, we can set something up, or we go into our secondary fast break and where we're able to break the other team down with our penetration and so on. So we feel comfortable each way. So no matter the opponent coming up into the tournament, we feel comfortable that no matter what style they play, we still can compete against that.
Okay, Coach, let's talk about Butler. First of all, let's talk about the implications of the game. Obviously, GWAC North title on the line. You at least would clinch a share, and then, of course, have the game against Greenville where you could win it outright should you win. It's come down to these two teams the last couple of years. I don't think I'm saying anything earth-breaking when I say Butler's obviously a very good team. Can you just talk about the battles that you've had and how familiar you are with each other and just, you know, the respect that you have for their program?
Yeah. Number one, I think DJ's a great coach. I think he handles his kids just the proper way, and the way they run their offense and defense is suited for the kids that he has. Talking about the last question about the styles, that's a team that's going to slow it down against us. But we've been able to hold our own against them. What I would like to happen is that we break the pattern of us winning down there at their place for the last 3 years, and then them winning here for the 2 years prior. We need to break that this year. That's be a good time to break that. And what it's going to take is it's effort defensively. They got some kid, the Norman kid, Krill is the quarterback of their club, and Josiah is the one that handles him most often. So Josiah is going to be a key for us, that we keep Krill out of the paint. He likes to drive more than he likes to shoot, and he's about a 6'1" guard, and he likes to get into the paint. He can go left, right a little bit, keep him out of the paint. And then if that doesn't work, he likes to post up, and Josiah is athletic enough to bother. The Johnson kid is a 6'6" kid that 2 years ago when he was a sophomore killed us here. So he has that ability. I think he's a strong football player going somewhere football-wise, receiver, I believe. So you know that he has that competitive edge to him. Ratez will be matched up against him. First game this year, we did a great job of limiting his offensive points. So hope we can do that again. Now, the kid that will be a surprise to a lot of our fans is the Glover kid. He's a senior, about a 6'4", a bigger, wider kid that played a little bit against us but didn't have a great impact. That's going to be a hard matchup for us to start. Keith Lee will be on him, and they're looking Vandalia the last 3 or 4 games that we've watched. They're really looking to start him early into the paint, into the post up. So we're going to have to concentrate on that. That's a little bit different than the last couple years for us playing against them. But Keith's really going to have to work hard inside, getting around on the post and not giving up power layups to the Glover kid. Offensively for us, they really pack it in. They try to take away the driving lanes for Andre. So we talked earlier about Trey. We're going to have to hit some jumpers. We have kids that can do that, and we're just going to have to be strong when Andre drives, getting in position to score there.
And kind of along those lines, you talk about hitting jumpers. Is there an indicator to you, or I know stats don't always tell the story, or a statistic that you'll look at, you know, maybe at halftime or something like that, that says, you know what, if we do this, I think we're going to be in a pretty good position?
Well, rebounding is the key for us, because I believe we're a strong defensive team. If we can limit our opponents to one shot most of the time down the floor, that's a good sign for us. The other one is deflections. I think Andre's a key to that. If he's into it defensively and getting his hands on a lot of balls, I mean, you talk about busting games open. That's what does it for us when we're deflecting the ball and we're chasing down those loose balls and we're throwing it ahead. I think those two things are if you watch us play, if we're rebounding, limiting teams to 1-2 shots, about 1.5 shots a possession, and we're getting deflections and loose balls, those are the two things that I look for, and those are the two things that show that we're ready to play and we're going to bust it open sooner or later.
Not only is it for the GWalk title, the GWalk North title, the last GWalk North title, against a great team, but also it's senior night as well. And you're seeing one of the, I don't know what the stats are, but it's got to be one of the most winning senior classes go ever. Wonder if we could just go through everybody real quickly and just kind of talk about, you know, what they've given to you, the program, maybe not just on Friday nights, but also throughout the week. Let's start with Josh Harlett.
Hey, Josh Harlett. Everybody would like to have him on their team. Every coach would like to have Josh Harlett on his team. Just the positive attitude he's given to everybody. He works every day in practice. He's a smart player on and off the, smart player on the floor. Academically, he's, I don't know where he stands in the class, but he's in the top whatever. But you have to have those type of kids to have a strong team. Josh gives everything he has, and as I said, every coach would love to have Josh on his team.
Jace Conrad next.
Jace, a lot of people know his story. He played as a sophomore for us. He and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. That's his sophomore year. He didn't play last year. He had to get his academics in gear, had to get himself in gear, and we worked things out for him to be able to play his senior year. Anticipation going into the year, Jace was going to be about our 7th to 9th man. We thought we were going to be able to sub a little bit more than what we have, but Jace is that fighter for us. When we have a kid on the other team that's giving us fits, we'll put Jace on him, and Jace bothers you that way. He gets right up in you and doesn't back down from anything. That's probably the best trait I can say about Jace is he just doesn't back down.
And we'll stop right there because the other 4 are obviously starters. Just curious what your philosophy is, maybe not just going into this game, but year to year on senior night, getting the seniors some playing time and those type of things. What's your philosophy when it comes to that?
Win the game first. We haven't even talked about what we're going to do tomorrow with Vandale, if we're going to start all seniors. That's been a norm where I coached before and what other teams have done. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. We'll have a little bit of talk about that at practice today. We have 6 seniors, so you feel bad one isn't going to be able to start if we go that route, but we're not going to change substitution patterns at all.
Gotcha. And then next, let's go to the starters. First of all, let's start with Keith Lee.
Keith Lee, I love having Keith on the team. Fun to have around. He's our smart player on the floor. He takes the ball out of bounds for us. We put him in the middle a lot against half-court traps and so on because he's smart with the basketball. He's one of our better perimeter shooters. It's good that Keith gets a couple threes up a game and makes them. And his big thing this year was his three-pointer against Wayne to set it in overtime. So he'll probably live with that for the rest of his life, man. That'll be the story that he tells everybody when he graduates.
Absolutely. And also having coached him and taught him in class, a kid that I'm sure that although his numbers don't speak it, he's a kid that you trust, especially in these big games and going into tournaments.
Yeah, with the play of Lathan and Trey, people are asking, why aren't they getting more playing time? But Keith is the one that I trust on the floor. He's not going to want to go out and try to prove that he can do this and that. He's the one that stays constant. He's consistent in his play. And as a coach, I really appreciate that from Keith.
Absolutely. Next up, Josiah Hudgens.
Josiah, a lot of people ask, what's up with Josiah and so on, but the more I talk to people, I think they're getting to realize how valuable he is on the defensive end. He doesn't jump out at you as being an aggressive defensive player. He's not in everybody's jock stealing the ball. But what he does, he contains the guy he's guarding. If you go back and watch film, the guy he guards hardly ever scores. And he's guarding some of the best players in the G-Walk. He just keeps them in front, keeps them out of the lane for the most part, and that's why I said Josiah's an important thing for us tomorrow. He's an important factor for the game against Butler because he's going to guard their best player. And their best player is the quarterback of the team, and if we can handle him and control him, we control the team. So that's how important, that's how valuable Josiah is to our team.
Absolutely. And next up, Rotez Roberts.
I don't know where we'd be without Rotez the last 3 years. I think his points are down a little bit this year from 11-something to 10.5. No big deal to us. But the way he just controls the inside, nobody wants to shoot. When they see Rotez coming at them, they don't shoot the ball. And it doesn't matter how tall they are, how big they are, they don't shoot when Rotez is in the area. And that's very important. We don't have the big post player this year, and it's a little different for us. But we try to keep Rotez in the middle of the lane, and he controls that. And his rebounding, he's #1 in the league in rebounding. He's not nearly as tall as anybody. He's 6'3", and every other team has 6'6", 6'5" that he goes up against. But I think when you talk about Rotez, the #1 thing you talk about is how nice he is and how kind he is. And for anybody that coaches and anybody that teaches, I think that's the #1 factor or #1 characteristic you look for in a kid, how kind they are and how nice they are to others.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better. And lastly, I'm sure you could go on for a while about him, but just talk a little bit about Andre.
The first thing I always say about Andre is he's coachable. You always hear stories about, players like Andre being prima donnas. Andre's nothing like that, and I tell everybody, #1, that college coaches I've talked to, the fans that talk to me, the #1 thing I say is how coachable he is. Made me feel welcome from day one. This year especially, I let him run the team more than I have with other players. He has a good read of how the game is going. He knows when to speed up. He knows when, hey, let's take our time. Let's run a special play here. And he's able to call plays. You'll see us. I'll call something, and he'll say, no, let's run this. That doesn't matter to me. I put it in his hands. He's the quarterback of the team. And the way I grew up playing basketball, the point guard is your quarterback, and you let them, if they have something that they see is going to work, you let them read it, and you let them call it.
And along those lines, I know you don't like to talk about it, but obviously you were a great high school and college player. Do you think there's anything that you being his coach, you've been able to give to him moving forward, about what it's going to be like at the next level? And do you think, how successful do you think he can be at that next level?
We don't talk a lot about it. We talk more, we talk about what you're going to have to do at that next level. From day one, I tried to help him with his pull up a little bit more. He can shoot the three. He's a great shooter. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. He is a great shooter. He is a great three-point shooter. His percentages are down just because of the attention he gets, and he feels he has to put a lot of moves on to get open to hit some things. But once he gets to the college level, he's going to make one move and a counter to that, and we've been trying to work with him on that. But he, how creative he is with the ball. He likes to put on a show, there's no doubt about it. But once he gets into the college, that's going to have to be trimmed down a little bit to one explosive move, then a counter off of that. And he has that in his package. So those are the things we talk about. We know he's a great defender. Sometimes he doesn't show it all the time, but he is a great one-on-one defender. He is a great help side defender. So when he gets to college, he already has that. Coaches aren't going to have to worry about that going to college. Now, you may think, well, that's not a big deal. Everybody knows. No, not every college player has been coached that way. Not every player understands that. Andre understands it. #1, he understands it. #2, he's been coached that way. So when he gets into the college level, nothing's going to be new to him, I don't think.
Great. And just kind of summing up the group, Coach Willoughby, when we talk about Joss, Jace, and then the 4 starters, just what have they meant to the program? Obviously, when you took over, the program wasn't in shambles by any means, but they've certainly been able to help take it to that next level.
I think the number one thing is the relationship we have with our fans. That's probably been a bigger change, the biggest change we've made. I think we have a togetherness, not only as a team, but with our fans, and that's kind of neat to see. Probably the biggest thing, the nicest thing, probably the most important thing that any fan has said to me over the last 3 years about this group is how polite they are to the youngsters that come up after the game. As you know, after home games, even after away games, we give them 5 minutes before they have to go in the locker room. That's the time they talk to their parents, so the parents don't have to wait around. And as you know, and you see on film, all the kids that come up to our players, and I believe our players treat them really well, and so that's probably the nicest thing anybody has said so far about this group is how they relate and how appreciative they are, how if you want to call it role models, whatever, but they've been exceptional role models for our kids. And you watch our junior high kids, they want to play like, they want to play like us. And to build a program, that's what you need. You have to have great examples at your high school level, the youngsters coming and watching, coaches going down there and helping them out, and that's the way you build a program. So I think we're on the right track with that.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Coach Willoughby, for joining us.
Well, thanks, Greg, for all you've done so far this year with us, and we appreciate the work that you have done.
Absolutely. Well, me, Sparksy, and Jacob Everingham will be back here tomorrow night. It's empty right now, but it'll be packed.
Get here early, right?
Yeah, get here early. That's exactly right. We'll carry the JV game starting about 6 o'clock, depending on what the freshman game does. And then we'll be right after that with the varsity game. We'll replay this interview, getting ready for the game, as the Jackets take on the Butler Aviators for the GWalk North title. This is Greg Snyder from SHS TV Productions along with Coach Willoughby. Thanks for joining us.